stands, we have 2 more readers, but I'm gonna put this sucker over there on that table and you're welcome to sign up on it. But right now our last 2 readers are gonna be Russell Olson and Katie Robinson.
Thank you. This is Fairly Odd Talents. It's a parody to this one Nickelodeon show called Fairly Odd Parents that Woody, Katie, Lindsay, and all millennials probably know. And it's about me relating my life to this kid that is whatever. So yours truly is a random kid that no one understands. Teachers and the in-crowd always giving me commands. The hall. The staring glare right in my chair is broken instantly by a magic still trapped mind, which is one of a kind, because in reality, they are my odd talents, fairly odd talents, stats and things, crazy number of things. Odd talents, fairly odd talents, really fast, Russell, muscle, hustle. When's my birthday? How much you weigh? Z2A. How tall you grow? Fingers slow, doubles go. Odd talents, fairly odd talents. It makes the bus when you are the rest with fairly odd talents.
Good job, Russell.
Oh, whoops, I'm like moving the paper. Okay, don't mean to move the mic, so.
You can tip it down just slightly if you'd like. There you go.
Is that good?
Mhm.
All right. Whew. This first one is about the famed icon that it would be nice if they were alive today to help solve some problems, minus the spoilers at the end. But anyways, this one is St. Joan of Arc. Beautiful, brilliant call of voices in my father's garden at noon in the summer, terrifying at first. Living a holy life was vital too for her preparation. St. Michael, he appeared with angels. St. Margaret of the peasants and exiles, and Hypatia, reborn sainted Christian in Alexandria. Prepared as a teenager, you must go where you're led with no military training. Carry his cross for good. They trusted her, and she and the angelic day delivered all to France. See how they treated her. My heart is like wax, melted, but I can count all of my bones, for you are with me. I was born for this, to die like for this. There are many more like me. Seek and find, listen, live, and go where you are led to die.
Well,
I'm like, the thematic order, it would be nice if they're all written in order, but some of them are in different books. But this one is named Jordan. And there we saw the giants, the sons who come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Numbers 13:33. Of all the paths to follow, be sure a few of them are through the desert. A land of endless possibilities to explore. I have held fast to your paths. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. A walking staff gratefully encouraged the Lamb of Dawn. Prominent in phases, winding ascension of heaven, simultaneous in nature and in history. Hair shirt, August end, scallop shell, beloved chalice, beautiful inheritance, you hold my lot. Hills yourself stability. Relatively expected with all their spirits, pray for peace, my father also instructed me. You have tried my heart, I will find nothing, unless by the words of your lips. My army have surrounded us like a lion eager to tear. Deliver men by your hand. Crossed over singed edges, approach the mirror, the river dividing, life and death's union and dissolution, splattered pouring water, life-giving prophets for who is to come, like a passing never quite buried, aquatic dreams, sapphire subconscious. When I awake, I hope you will be satisfied with your likeness. A new way to harvest silver refined, risen above ground, purified 7 times. It would have been enough to set a crown of fine light upon his head to sprout. Augury magnificent Hail Mary, pomegranate uncommon fig, hide me in the shadow of your wings. Okay. Next time I promise I'll read some emo love poetry. I'm like, some of these are just religious, and it's like, it's okay.
It's all good.
Emo love poetry next time. I can count on that. So, The Last Supper. I open at the close. An Ouroboros, a symbol of the infinite made up of twin snakes. Berenice and Serpentine, embrace draws us closer, riding in weight, lying inside. How to be a true rather than false. Be led by the word, say what needs to be said, take the right actions for the right reasons. Leaders unlost, not lost, fearlessly lead, having an unchangeable luster. Berenice or Serpentine, den of a thief, rival daggers, glimmers, slithers, silver. Separate. Ego from duty, set aside pride, justice from revenge, serve ally and enemy alike. Hate from love, embrace draws us closer. Black from white, discern the gray, horizon for growth, and true fruit and vine in the garden. True servanthood. However far a stream flows, it doesn't forget its origin. 7 strings of day and days of great resonance. Flashback. Out of the depths I cry to you. Service above self. I always love company, set aside a special table. I open at the close. This last one is called Virgo. I think it shows something, a certain devotion that they wanted to commemorate to build in building so many beautiful cathedrals in northern France, aligned with the constellation Virgo, atop old sites and places of worships or abodes. There's something eternal in impermanence. God reaches back to us, whoever, whatever, whenever we are. I think he wants to save and loves everyone. We don't understand. Thank you.
Great news, we got a whole bunch more people. So our next 3 readers are going to be Yash, Mar, and Addison. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I'll just say that.
Not gonna lie, I realized I haven't read too much besides fan fiction, so I had to find something to share. And I'm sharing a little something that I actually wasn't gonna be sharing for a while, so. I met you when I was 9 years old. You looked like the Undertaker in your sparkling cloak made of ashes. Ash, that was the name you told me. You lived somewhere among the stars, in some place you said the light never touched. When I first saw you, it was the middle of the night, down the hall from my bedroom. Someone, another ghost, was crying and you were soothing her. You promised her everything would be okay. It wasn't a first. You were probably the 10th ghost I'd met. By now, ghosts were familiar, and you were safe. You felt like an older brother, though we looked nothing alike, with black bangs that swept over your face in soft waves, with eyes just as dark. Black was the only color I ever saw in you. Your hands were ice cold on my skin, yet you smiled like most teenage boys after cracking a lame joke. Your smile in the darkness of my bedroom was my sunshine through years living in a nightmare. You started to change when we were raped in middle school. You didn't smile as often. You became numb to emotion. My middle school girlfriends never liked you. You didn't like them either. You thought they were too clingy. They complained that we never loved them. And I remember you standing there, emotionless, while my girlfriend called you a monster with tears pouring down her face, standing in the middle of class. I started wearing a short brown wig, or with my bangs swept across my face in soft waves. I started wearing black, lots of black. My signature, a black leather jacket. I started to see a boy that looked like you in my reflection. When I told my girlfriend about you, she thought I was possessed. Told me she got some exorcism certification online and that she would heal me, as religious 14-year-olds do. I didn't want to be healed. You'd been with me 5 years. You'd cared for and loved me for 5 years. We were roommates from my freshman year of high school up through my junior year of college. You sat in my passenger seat on every drive where it was just the 2 of us, and we'd either chat or sit in silence to music the whole way. If I told my parents or my therapist about you, I didn't know what they would say. You told me when my high school boyfriend broke up with me that we don't need anyone else, that we'd always done everything with no one but each other. When I was in therapy, I visited that place a lot. The one you said the light never touches, and it didn't. I don't think there was a single window in that house. Long stretches of pitch black hallways, some so tight I had to walk with my back and chest both brushing the walls. Rooms upon rooms, some locked, some open, mostly empty. I run into others on occasion. I only hear some, we never talk. But in such a vast and never-ending house, it often feels like I'm alone within its walls. Stairways, dead ends, but no exits. I told my therapist when we met in my headspace, you flipping through a book in the library in our conversation. I didn't tell her you could step outside my body. It didn't seem relevant to the work we were doing. We started to grow apart around then. You were bitter towards me, critical. I called you my inner critic in the first nonfiction essay I ever wrote, my first college essay. When I submitted it for publication, the editor said they were amazed with the metaphor. I laughed awkwardly and just smiled. You were never a metaphor. And now we were strangers, haunting each other. I wondered why you didn't leave. My roommates all met you. There was no introduction, just moving every May and August to have a new roommate point out we had a ghost who did the same things you did, like throw my roommates' phones at them while they were showering. The summer before my senior year, we stopped living together, but 9 months later, I begged you to return. I didn't want to be alive anymore. Step into my body, live for me, take the weight of my emotions away, and you did. You told me everything would be okay, and you looked me in the mirror, and you saw a boy named Yash.
So good.
Wow. I have to follow that. Okay. So this one I've read here before, but it was different, so I'm reading it again.
All right.
It's called Monarch. In my father's garden, there are fruit trees, vegetable beds, flowers. He tends to them with care. There are visitors, hummingbirds, butterflies, bees, every sign of life, except the astroturf. He doesn't mow. But he is aware of it also. He picks off leaves and dead flowers and gently places the lost caterpillar back in her milkweed home. This one's called Wild Horses. I dreamt of black tar shaping itself into evil creatures. Benign horses would suddenly bare their gnashing teeth. I dreamt of white horses, brutally wounded by enormous arrows, tumbling down a ravine into the mouths of slavering dogs. In all these dreams of horses, I never dream of mustangs racing through the prairie wild. I do not dream of wind streaming through my hair. I do not dream of splashing in puddles or grass beneath my naked feet. It is only in daylight I am free. And this last one is called I Walk in Sunlight. I walk in sunlight, snow and rain. I walk in autumn leaves and summer breeze and the shivering blossoms of spring. I walk on concrete paths, on dirt, on grass. I walk with birds, with moths, with bees. Never lonely or alone, I walk in sunlight.
Beautiful.
It's my first time, so thanks.
All right, welcome.
I'm Addison, and I've had this idea for this for a little while now, but it just came. So it's entitled "I Should Have Known." I should have known. I look back and with that perfect 20/20 hindsight, I can see all the signs. So many times that stick out now, not quite like a sore thumb, more like a half ripped off, super painful cuticle. You know, those times when they peel back, then swell to be a ripe tomato that shoots pure lightning bolts of pain through your nerves every time you use that finger.
Yeah.
And even, probably out of spite, those times when you're careful not to hit or rub or touch it, they're that obvious. That's why I should have seen it. But how could I be this old and not put the pieces together? How could I not know? Well, that's just how it goes, I guess. You figure it out when you figure it out. I don't know. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that maybe never figure it out. But I'm one of the lucky ones. I did finally come to this new knowledge of me, of my body, this great, wonderful, dreadful knowledge that has changed the entire landscape of my life. Overnight, almost, kind of. So let me tell you about it. Buckle up, it's a ride. So looking back, right, I just knew as a kid that something was just different about me. I could tell from a kind of young age. I remember just feeling uncomfortable, like there was something wrong with my body. I couldn't ever put my finger on it, and I could never really describe it in any sort of way to be able to successfully convey to my parents, or my siblings or friends for that matter, what I felt. It's just a general uneasiness that would come and go. Super intense at times, so painful that I remember laying curled up on the floor, crying huge crocodile tears, begging my mom to not make me go to school. Sometimes she would relent, sometimes not. But it was really kind of random too. Like much of the time, I was just fine. And not that everything's fine with the dumpster fire burning around us kind of fine. I guess I'd say that while I see the evidence, and I can now tie those back to what I now understand to be the reason, it didn't affect my childhood all that much. But it also kind of did, too, just not in a super salient manner. I see those times in my teenage years when the side effects made something super awkward, especially in some group settings. It was even taxing on my relationships as I found that it injected an amount of stress, albeit unrecognizable at the time, on my interactions with my crushes, dates, and girlfriends. I would find myself trying to excuse myself and asking for forgiveness for things I didn't understand weren't really my fault. What kind of? Anyways, I didn't know. These same things would continue to crop up through my adult life. I found some ways to alleviate that uncomfortableness, but it never really addressed the underlying issue. So it never could be that true cure, just a band-aid solution at best. The symptoms became so routine and normal for me that at various times I was knighted with monikers, or christened, if you will, with not so flattering nicknames that colorfully described my humiliation. But then, finally, after years and years of wondering what was wrong with me, why did I feel like this? Why couldn't I be comfortable and just feel right? Or at least just okay? All that time, and the answer comes, presents itself and drops that bomb of a revelation right into my lap. And to be honest, the first thought that hits the windshield of my brain, splattering with juicy force across my consciousness as I try to interpret what this will mean for me, for my family, for everyone I break bread with. To say that it changes things, well, that's an understatement. It upends it, it flips the table, and the game pieces are flying in all directions. That's what this means for me. Now that I know that I'm not messed up, that I'm not broken, but just a little different. But it's not a death sentence. I can live with this. Yes, it requires changes. Big changes. The kind of changes that are hard to do. hard to continue to do. So many people won't understand. So many people will just not even consider it. And then there's some that will dismiss it entirely, positing that I'm just faking it. That it's not real. Like, how come it's such a big thing now? It's always been here. How come I don't remember it coming up way back in the day? It's because you weren't aware of it. It is rare. Only about maybe 1% of the population, really. It's not a lot of people, but it's not zero either. Some of the changes are easy, because it's fairly easy to see very quickly how my life improves by just taking those first steps. It's amazing how much better I feel without having to deal with that unknown uncomfortableness trailing along with me. Some changes are really hard too. For one thing, it can be expensive. So much cleaning out, throwing things away to replace with new things that will help me feel better, hopefully. It's hard to start spending more, but the improvements I saw, my mood, my health, were undeniable. So I bit the bullet and did it anyway. I had to struggle through those pesky identity problems that I never thought I'd have to worry about after middle and high school. I've always been lucky, super lucky, privileged really, to be in the majority to that point that I never recognized that privilege. But automatically this puts me into a very small minority. And one of the things with which I struggled with was that I previously didn't have a very charitable view of this minority. I felt that they were sometimes pushy, sometimes uppity, and I felt like they were a bit stuck up or self-righteous, that they were truly being way more healthy than the rest of us. This prejudice of mine was another thing that was hidden to my younger self, that privileged self. But it reared its ugly head when I found myself in their ranks. Thankfully, I found that view, my prior presupposition, was wrong. And even if there were some people like that, I didn't have to be that way. I found it difficult to ask for accommodations. I'd never had to before, but there was no way around it with this. I had to be careful of where I went. I had to learn to search to find places that were okay for me to go, and that were safe for me. If I was unsure, I had to speak up and ask and elaborate and inform, and sometimes teach others about what my condition is and what it meant for me and what I needed to be safe and whole. As I learned and grew, I got more comfortable with all of those parts that originally irked me. I found out what it was to be me without the extras that came with this. Sometimes I'd mess up and I'd feel sick. Sometimes violently so, as my body itself could tell that things were wrong again. And I'd find myself doubled over again, sicker than a dog, wishing for relief, wondering if I puked, that made me feel better. But today I know. And I'm glad that I know. Yes, it has upended my life, and everything has changed. But my life is so much better. So ultimately, I will say I am glad that I now know that I have celiac disease. And if anything, helped to prepare me for when I figured out a couple years later that I was transgender.
Love it.
All right, guys, we've got 2 more readers on here. So if anybody wants to get on here, this is your last chance. It's going to be Brooke and then Star.
Hi guys.
Hi, Brooke.
I just have two poems for you guys today. This first one does not have a title, it's an old drop, so if you guys have a suggestion, you can yell it out while I'm reading. My mom tells me I used to be just like you. When I yell about never wanting children. At 14, her hair was longer than mine, so I can't imagine her begging the world for a vacant womb. Then again, we yell at each other the same way, like we hope it will hurt. I think of her rejecting her woman destiny the same way I do, by screaming at her mother, begging it to dent, to break something inescapable, begging me not to exist. And then this next one is kind of tone shift, a little less angsty. This one was inspired by geodesic domes and fullerenes and sort of the ideas of Buckminster Fuller and his ideas about homes. And it's titled Triangle Globe. Our house, body, home. Our home and a house, our own bones and muscles translated into architecture. Our architecture discovered in spaceships, in passengers, in our houses that move, our bodies impermanent into shapes.
Wow.
Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Woody, for all of your Helicon work. You're the best. I'm Star.
Hi, Star.
Hi, I have two pieces. The first one is very short and it's titled Coat. The second one is short but longer and it's titled Cake. Coat. My dead sister walks the sidewalks of the town where she spent the last 50 years of her married life wearing loafers and polyester pants and flowery faux silk blouses with buttons up the front, with darts sewn in for her ample breasts and a flat collar pressed to a V above her cleavage. My dead sister, Manon. At 35, she had a son older than I and a daughter taken from her when she was 16. At 35, she strides into the shop where she buys my first ever wool coat, a green A-line that swooped its stiff hem down past my knees, too big through the shoulders, so she had it tailored, but the tailoring left bulky seams that made my neck ache, gave me migraine. Before she bought me that wool coat, she marched me through the high school in the sky blue parka I loved, parka stained with blood from a throwdown in a shed behind the tabernacle after a noon-hour gin and milk ride with the senior boy. Humiliation gripped me as my sister gripped my shoulder when she stormed us through the halls to the principal, then out to the car for the lawyer's office to get a restraining order, and then home where I was grounded until the end of the school year, the school where I was branded a slut by kids turning to point and whisper about my ruined favorite coat. My sister threw it away when she finished our parade through the halls of the high school, pressed charges on the boy, and drove me to her house in bitter winter, red stain frozen on my back. Cake. My 20 years older sister Manon was famous in our family for her cherry nut cake. Before Manon died in 2009, she dictated her memorized recipe to me, not only the ingredients and the order of mixing, but specific directions on the cake's creation. Eggs at room temperature. Separate the eggs. Beat the yolks with butter, sugar, and vanilla. Add flour. Fold in the egg whites. Stir in chopped maraschino cherries and walnuts. Batter will turn pink. Bake in 2 round cake pans. After the cake cools, add cherries to the whipped buttercream frosting. Manon insisted you can never have too many cherries. Be generous with the cherry pink frosting, and then let the cake rest, she said, because the cake is better the second day. Manon's cherry nut cake was one of 3 cakes I remember her for. The cake she baked most often was German chocolate cake with coconut pecan frosting. That cake was her Sunday best. Her best Christmas cake was Mother's old pioneer recipe for boiled fruit cake, a dark, dense cake made with raisins and walnuts. Manon perfected the boiled fruit cake recipe, made it moist and flavorful enough to send in the mail to family members who left home to start their own lives. Her son Eric, 2 years older than I, learned his mother's recipes by heart and sends a much practiced version of the boiled fruit cake to family and friends every December. I've been practicing Manon's cherry cake recipe. I give my latest attempt a high rating for looks and fragrance, for the batter rising high in the oven as it bakes. I Googled the reason you must not use cold eggs straight from the fridge for mixing cake dough. Keeps the cake from rising high, makes the batter stodgy. My sister Manon was not stodgy. As a young teen, I may have thought that she was boring, or maybe that she was simply intent on keeping me bored. She had taken me into her home, stole me from my mother, in my mind, because I was too much of a party girl at 13 when Manon was 33. Manon was glamorous. She wore high heels and belted taffeta dresses, big fancy earrings and fur coats. But she was a farm girl at heart. Cooked and baked and tended a garden and vacuumed her house in bare feet. She had a vacuum inside her walls. It sucked all the dust out and deposited it in a barrel inside her garage. I most remember Manon's cooking in winter. She baked Rhodes frozen bread dough into crusty loaves, tender on the inside, spread with a slather of butter. She made chunky beef stew with carrots, potatoes, and light brown broth. She made 60s-style desserts with Jell-O and boxed whipped topping. She made tapioca pudding for Eric and me when we came home from school for lunch. I wonder now that I've baked the cherry cake, what I missed about the seasons of my sister's life. I wonder about the pleasures she must have grieved for in the last 3 years she lived with metastasized cancer. I wonder if baking the cherry cake makes up for my not paying enough attention to Manon's care for me, for our contentious relationship when I was young, and she was only trying to make life better for me, as she once told me after I grew up and got married and had kids of my own to cook for. If baking is a form of paying attention to history, let me always bake Manon's cherry nut cake. Let me share it with family and friends in honor of her. Let me store the cake in the pantry until the second day, when the cherries have mellowed like the relationship I shared with my sister as she was dying. My sister who never again baked that cake she loved, with never too many cherries, always better the second day.
Thank you so much for coming, everybody. That is it for our Helicon West event. Please join us next month at, I forget the date, but it is the last Thursday of the month.
Not July.
Not July, never mind.
We're not having one in July.
We're coming back in August.
August.
So, enjoy the month off, I guess, and then we'll see you on August.
All right, thank you, Woody.
Thank you.